It's very cold here today in the southern hemisphere in Australia. Welcome back to my channel. And if you've been watching my last couple of videos and my shorts, you know that I'm in a very different pace of life at the moment this winter, moving very slowly, moving very intentionally, and moving very attuned to the rhythm of my body and the needs of my body. And this is what my work here is on this channel and on my Substack, is talking about moving into a body-centric way of living. Because, you know, we've been so conditioned to live through our minds, we do not actually even know what the rhythm of our body is, right? Because we've not gotten in touch with our bodies for so long, for decades. And my experience and my journey is arriving more and more into my body, is descending more and more into my body, which means that the way my life looks and the way I move through the day is very different at the moment. And
yes,
so what I wanted to talk about in this video today is that when we start to arrive more and more into the body, our minds will protest. Our minds will protest a lot. When we slow down, because our body requires us to slow down, our minds will throw the biggest tantrum. The mind will spin and create all sorts of stories of failure and loss and being behind and all of that. And I've been observing these stories, I've been observing these thoughts. And every time I listen to my mind, because the mind is conditioned through early childhood experience, right? Every time I start to listen to my mind, I can see the seeding of those thoughts, those beliefs, those patterns, those thought patterns from the early childhood experiences, because that's where these thought patterns are seeded. And so then I examine the systems. Of course, there are the family dynamics, but in today's video, I particularly wanted to examine the schooling and the education system. And I have more and more uncovered just how conditioned we become by the time we reach adulthood because of the systems and structures within which we operate, the systems and structures within which we transact and interact and believe to be the default, right? And so the schooling and the education system is very, very interesting and worth noticing and worth examining if you're also on a journey of healing and transformation and going into your body and slowing down and attuning to the needs of your body, and which has meant that you've had to kind of maybe slow down and you're not so productive and you're not so in the world, right? The conditioned mind will throw a tantrum because we essentially were put through, I don't know, 14 years of schooling or 15 years of schooling. It'll vary from country to country, but it is at least that. We start at about 4 and then we go on till about 18. So yeah, there's at least 14 years of schooling. And the schooling system conditions our body into a very fixed sense of timing. You know, Monday to Friday, we have to be on from like 8:30 to 3:34. And, you know, young bodies adapt, young bodies are resilient. So there's this, the mind gets conditioned that the day must look like this, you know, productivity between the hours of whatever, 8:30 to 3 or 4, and then depending on where you are. I mean, in Asian countries, children are after that going to tuitions and extra classes and extracurricular activities, and it doesn't stop. Like, they're exhausted, right, by the end of all of the extracurricular plus school activities. But the mind gets conditioned into this sense of how the day must be and how productive we must be. But the mind, through the schooling system, also gets very conditioned into a sense of competitiveness, into a sense of grading. Because in the schooling system, we're constantly being pitted against each other, right? We're constantly being firstly graded, of course, the marks, the exams. and then we're being pitted against each other, and everyone needs to be on the top. And I know a lot of the alternative and nature-based schools don't do exams and don't do grading, which has been a huge change in the way traditional schooling or education was delivered. But even in those schools, right, when you're with peers, when you're performing with peers, you're always aware of which child is getting all their maths correct, all their sums correct, all their equations correct, or they're writing all their essays beautifully, or their handwriting is the best, or the music instrument, they play the music instrument beautifully, right? So subtle biases, the teachers will make a comment on how amazing the child plays or how amazing this person's handwriting is. And so you always, you just for 14 years get conditioned in a sense of like comparison and hierarchy within a peer group. And so you're constantly trying to climb a very invisible, non-existent ladder, but there is a sense of a ladder of I have to get better than this and get better than this and get somewhere. And we spend our entire lives, even once we enter adulthood, because then we go into the working sort of, like companies and organizations that are also grading us, that are also judging us, that are also giving us performance scores, right? And they're also giving us bonuses on performance. And what this does to our system, what this does to our mind is very tragic. It's very tragic because when we go onto this journey, however we land into this journey of healing and transformation, we've got to move to a very different rhythm. We've got to move to a very different pace, right? But the mind is conditioned to competitiveness, to grading, to comparison, to speed, to a sense of productivity and time. And that can be a real battle. Like I have experienced that quite viscerally in these last many weeks, where I've had to become really aware of my thought patterns, and it's a real deconditioning. It's a real emptying out of the mind from everything that it has learned. But it's not easy. It's painful because it's gonna just throw at you whatever it has learned innocently when we were children, through the voices of the adults that we heard all the time tell us to do more, to achieve more, study more, strive more, get better marks. That we realize that the only moment is this now, right? The now moment. It carries everything that we need. All answers, all wisdom, all joy, all healing. Everything is in this moment. And yet what the education system trains our mind very early on for 14 years is never to be in the moment, because you're always keeping your eyes ahead of yourself somewhere else to this destination that the system has created for you, and you do not know at that point, because you're too young, you're too innocent, you're too impressionable, that there's actually nowhere to get to. There is no destination to get to, right? And I'm sure a lot of you will identify this in your own mind's pattern of the sense of urgency. So what the mind does is, once it's conditioned the body too. So the body stays in urgency. So the body stays in any moment, like I've got to run, I've got to be somewhere, I've got to get there, I need to have done that by now, I should have, so that's what that's the stress that we heal when we come into the body, that we've got to heal. That's the work. And when we still live in a very distorted system, right? Because everyone else right now is still on the hamster wheel. They're still going, because they haven't yet, their bodies are still either not, gosh, I had a lot of rainwater just suddenly come down from the roof. So their bodies are still managing to go, right? Their bodies haven't yet completely gone stop. this course on which we're going is not sustainable into our old age, into our into the senior years of our life, right? If we keep going on to this course, we're just going to get more and more and more and more stressed and unwell, and our bodies are not going to cope, right? Or maybe the bodies are constantly saying that. They're giving you the signals, but you've numbed it out. You've numbed it out through consumption, distraction, whatever sedation that you have found or people have found. And so what happens is that when we arrive into the body-centric way of living, in attunement with the body, it sounds very beautiful, right? And it is. In moments, it's very beautiful because you finally feel, I'm just wanting this gust of wind to stop so that I've got this roofing over the greenhouse that has come off, so that's just going up and down with the wind. And so what I really wanted to describe in this video is that if you're at a place where you're having to slow down for a season and really listen to your body and recalibrate and heal and emotionally process, and your mind will throw big tantrums based off the conditioning, based off the systems and structures that we grew up in. And so that's something to watch out for. And the more we become aware of the narratives, the more we become aware, we don't get caught up in it. And so the mind will settle. It will settle and ease will come into the body. But also you'll notice that it can be lonely. I just want to really point out this journey can be lonely because the very fact is that the masses are still on the hamster wheel. They're still going round and round, round and round, right? Only a very few people are exiting the wheel and going, whoa, whoa, what is it? Oh, wow, like, whoo. And it's for the first time. Once you exit the hamster wheel, there is no map, there is no path, right? You have to literally just follow the path as it's created from moment to moment, day to day, as you move with the pace of the body, with the rhythm of the body, with what the body is doing. And so it can feel lonely because it's not like, and you'll find your tribe and you'll find the people that are on similar journeys, right? And that's the beautiful part. There are people that are arriving into their bodies, that are actually arriving into the deliciousness of occupying their bodies finally out of their heads. And you'll find those people. But the majority of your friends, family, co-workers are still on the hamster wheel, right? So that can create a slight sense of like loneliness if I'm not there anymore, because there's a part of the ego's identity that is still very attached to the hamster wheel. Because even if it was uncomfortable, it was familiar, right? And that's the hive mind, that's the consensus reality. And that's another thing we get from the schooling system. So again and again, I'll come back to the schooling system, because the schooling system is, again, creating a consensus reality, right? There is one adult in the classroom, 6 hours, 7 hours a day, that tells you what is true and what's not true, what is right and what's not right. And these 25 children, these 30 children every day are listening to this adult or sets of adults that are telling them what to do, what not to do, what is right, how to think. And very early on, what we learn through the schooling system is to be part of a hive mind, right? Part of consensus reality. And so I've noticed with my own children, they find it very difficult to stand out from the group. They want to dress like the group. They want to have watched the same movies that the group has watched, their peer group has watched. They want to make sure they've listened to the same songs that their peer group has watched or have heard. They want to own the same kind of things. They want to have the same kind of experiences because to fit in is is what we're conditioned to in the schooling system, right? But every child is so unique. Their blueprint is so unique, right? But that's just completely not honored in the schooling system. I don't want to completely diss it. I mean, there are some schools that are that are more conscious than the others, that allow for a slower pace. I know that we found one for our children. It's a Waldorf school that I find is a lot more gentler, a lot more aligned with the rhythms of the day, because that's what Rudolf Steiner was all about, with the schooling or the education system that he sort of created. But yeah. So all I wanted today was not to completely write it off, not to completely diss it, not to go, oh, because let's face it, we are actually really still living in late stage capitalism. We are all still needing to become employable and, earn our income from jobs and things. And so these schooling systems do prepare us in that manner. What I more wanted to impress upon through this video is that as an adult, if you're healing your body and you're finding that your body is not moving as your mind would expect it to, or your life is not moving as your mind wants it to, then you can trace the patterns, you can trace the conditioning back to those early years, back to those 14 years of schooling, and then you can be kind to the voice, because the voice in the head doesn't know any better. Like, that's how it got trained. And because it unless we become aware of it, if we're unconscious, then it can be suffering. The mind is saying something else, the body is saying something else, right? The mind is going, oh, by now I should have done X, Y, Z. The body is going, no, we need to nap, we need to rest, we just need to go take a walk. And the mind is going, oh, no, 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 but by now I should have done this. So it can be a very, it can cause suffering within our system, because there is a split between the mind and the body. So this is actually a process. The process of arriving into the body, the process of descending into the body, is also a process of deconditioning the mind from the impressions that it gathered from the systems, from the structures that we were raised in. So this was the intention of this video. Thank you.